Podcast City Network.
Something magic happens every time you go. You make the magic happen. The magic of Orioles baseball. When the game is close and the Orioles are hot.
Welcome to the Rip Griffin Show with Brad Chandler, a baseball podcast that is a part of the Podcast City Network. Follow them on Twitter at Rip Griffin Show. Here are your hosts, Rip Griffin and Brad Chandler.
That's the magic of Orioles baseball. Orioles magic, feel it happen. Orioles magic, feel it happen. O-R-I-O-L-E-S. Magic, 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 magic. Something magic happens every time you go.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode number 65 of the show. Little bit of a new intro. If you haven't heard, if you missed it, we are now part of the Podcast City Network. That is exciting for the show. And our intro, something new, is done by our co-host Brad, which I'm gonna go ahead and bring him in right now to talk about this because this is great. Brad, how you doing, man?
I am doing all right. I'm doing good, actually. I'm doing really good. Just found out some breaking news. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Absolutely. It's has to do with your neck of the woods there, but we will bring that up in just a minute. But first, let's go ahead and bring in our guest for tonight to talk about our team of the week, which is the Baltimore Orioles. Heather Noble. Heather, how are you doing, ma'am?
Hi, I'm great. Happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. We appreciate you coming on tonight's episode to talk about your team, the Baltimore Orioles. It's going to be exciting. We've got a lot of great things in store for tonight's episode. But we're going to go ahead and dive into the show tonight because we had some breaking news that right before we jumped onto the show tonight, and it has to do with the Boston Red Sox. So Andrew Benintendi is on the move. He has been dealt to the Kansas City Royals. The terms and the deal and the players or whatever have not been addressed yet, but we do know pending medical and physicals that he is on the move to the Kansas City Royals. Brad, what do you think about that?
I don't really know what to think. It's I thought that it would be I thought he was staying because of the fact that everything died down after they started talking about the possibility of trading him, and I didn't picture the Royals. That was one of those teams I just didn't think of. I thought maybe if he was going anywhere, he was going to Miami. They needed they needed an outfielder, a left-handed hitter. So it was weird to see that. So, but thanks for 2018, Andrew.
It'll be interesting to see how he fits in with Kansas City. I know they've made a couple moves this offseason, brought in a couple players that we kind of had talked about on previous episodes that were kind of head scratchers, but we'll see how he fits. We'll kind of find out what's going to go on as far as the terms, the players, and whatnot. But that's the latest breaking news right now on the episode is Andrew Benintendi is on the move to Kansas City. But I'll kind of keep moving on here. We had some other big signings. Well, actually one really this past weekend was Trevor Bauer. He is finally off the market, so to speak.
Thank God. I was getting sick and tired of the trolling that he was doing at the beginning of this offseason. I was super pumped. I was hoping that he would end up the Red Sox. And then I think it was 2 weeks later, I was just man, this is getting old. Super old. Everything that him and Rachel Luba were doing, especially with John Heyman, the writer, they were screwing with him, trolling him like really bad, and it was just getting annoying. And then, come to find out, there were some other instances that Bauer was a part of harassing people. And I'm going to actually let our guest go ahead and talk about that, because she was the one that ended up mentioning that I ended up finding that out through one of her tweets. So, Heather, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know exactly what it was that Bauer was doing?
So he's got a kind of long history of harassing people, specifically women online, and there are three different instances that stand out in particular. There's one that was a few years ago where a young woman, in response to a something that he said to Alex Bregman, who was her favorite player, she jokingly said to him, "Oh, well, you're my new least favorite player." He responded back to her, and she responded again, and she thought that they were having like friendly, joking banter for a while,
Right.
and he just kept going, and he bothered her, and he kept harassing her for, I think it was 72 hours.
Wow.
And yeah, so that was the first incident. He sent her 3 times. He tweeted at her 3 times as many times as she tweeted at him. The second incident was that there was a reporter for the New York Daily, no, sorry, the New York Post, New York Daily, New York Post, who sent a tweet out on her own timeline where she tweeted a screen grab of a tweet of his about his new about his media network and how they were going to be following the whole COVID thing, because she thought it was a little weird to and insensitive to be, drawing attention to yourself, because of like using COVID to draw attention to yourself. And she made a kind of pithy comment about that. And he was tagged into that and saw it, and he quote tweeted her and said, "Well, you clearly something like you clearly want attention, so here have some followers." Obviously, like with the goal of sending his legion of followers to attack her. And the third incident, a woman who I actually know on Twitter, who has like 140 followers. She's got a very small account. She doesn't know many people. When he was on his tour of teams, going around from team to team, to try to impress everybody and being really attention hoggy about it, she tweeted that we don't want you on our team. And he did not like that. So he quote tweeted her and harassed her and sent a lot of people her way. And there's been a lot of back and forth about these things, because a lot of people think that he's standing up for himself and has the right to do that. And from my perspective, and the perspective of most of the women that I know, that there's this huge power differential there. And when these were very small things that happened. Like, you don't need to defend yourself from somebody
Right.
saying that they don't want you on their team, or
Right.
that you're their least favorite player. And when you have hundreds of thousands of followers, when you're doing that, you're weaponizing Twitter against them,
Right.
and you're weaponizing misogyny against them.
Right.
So that's what he's been doing.
I actually was, I'm not going to say a victim of it, because there was someone who posted something about Bauer, and I just told him, I was like, this isn't a good look for you, guy. And then, like, I ended up getting hit by like 30 different people saying like, "Oh, look at this guy trying to be the knight in shining armor," and I'm just like, "What?" So yeah, I could see if that's coming towards me. I can only imagine what's.
He's kind of radicalized an army and to weaponize Twitter so that he can use his followers against people when he needs to.
Well, I'm happy he's over on the West Coast then, because I don't want to have to deal with that.
Absolutely. One of the things that kind of frustrated me about Bauer and how he went about everything is everybody's talking about how he used social media to build up his. I was actually listening to this on MLB radio that they were actually praising him for using the platform of social media to build up his brand, and they're calling it that he did everything correct, that he waited everything out, that he built up himself to be this high profile baseball pitcher, which in my opinion, I went on a little rant the other day after he got signed that said he's not worth $40 million. I think the Dodgers, they front loaded that contract to where he gets his money. There's no way he's better than Garrett Cole. He's making more than Garrett Cole. And
he's making more than everybody.
Well, yeah, but
he has had 2 good seasons, and the rest of his seasons have been okay. And his 2 good seasons, one of them was a 60-game season. The other season was when the American League Central was even worse than it normally is. Every team other than the Indians in the American League Central that season had under 500. They were all really bad. So how does anybody look at that and go, yeah, this guy is the best pitcher ever? There are people who swear it. There are people who absolutely swear that he is the best pitcher in the league.
Well, the Dodgers are paying that.
How? Like how? How are you guys looking at a guy who has 2 seasons with sub 4 ERAs?
So I was asking across Facebook the same question, and some people came across and they were like, maybe they're looking at his spend rate. I mean, it's out of control. He's definitely, his spend rate has been a lot higher lately, because of whatever substance he's using that isn't actually illegal. But I mean, if that's the case, then I mean, $40 million for 1 year and then $45 million the next year, damn well he's not going to pitch for them the third year unless he has a horrible second year.
Yeah.
No. And the terms of that deal, he's got to opt out after the first and second year.
Yeah.
So the Dodgers,
he ain't opting out of the first year.
Well, I want to see how he does.
This is what I want. I'm happy he signed a multi-year contract because so many people are calling him out, and I've said this numerous times. He had gone on record. I want to say it was back in 2018. He was talking to one of his friends. He said that if he ever signed a multi-year deal, he would end up letting one of his friends shoot him in the gonads with a paintball gun.
You're waiting for that.
I do not want to deal with the circus that he put everyone through every single off season. He was dwelling in the attention that he was getting from the whole, like, who was Bauer going to trade with for the last, or not trade, but sign with for the last few months.
He was trying to do the LeBron James thing.
Yeah, he was getting as much out of that as he could, not just to make as much money as possible by building himself up, but because he enjoyed it. And I don't want that. Like, I don't want to have to see that. Have him stay there for 3 years. I mean, I don't think that he can sustain a sub 3 or even sub 4 ERA for an entire 162 game season.
No.
I definitely don't think he can be great for 2 seasons.
And let's not forget that he wants to pitch every 4 days.
Which from a physiological standpoint, it's impossible.
All right.
You are
we-
not Jim Palmer, Trevor Bauer. You are not.
We've got a long episode. We could talk all day about Trevor Bauer. We've got a lot more to cover here.
Yeah.
Okay. But staying out west, some news came out with Clayton Kershaw saying that he's unsure of his future as a Dodger after the 2021 season. He will be a free agent or slated to be a free agent. So what do y'all think about this? Do you think he might actually call it quits after 2021?
I don't think he's going to another team.
Yeah. It was sounding more like leaning retirement to me than wanting to sign somewhere else. And he's very family oriented and he's got young kids. So I can see him wanting to actually have the ability to spend time with them. He's made his money. Yeah.
Right.
He's not in this for attention the way that some baseball players are.
He's finally
So
got his ring.
Yeah.
he finally got his ring. He has what he needs out of it. So I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either. I think the only thing that would probably keep him is if he got the Roger Clemens treatment, where he can actually only pitches at home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Has anybody noticed that there's not been a contract like that since Roger Clemens and the Astros?
That's wow. I never thought about that. No, there hasn't been. That's crazy. But that's a possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. He's
Yeah.
their prized pitcher. Vin Scully has actually come out and said he's the best that they have, which is obvious. He's been so dominant for his whole career within the Dodgers. So it'll be interesting to see. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say his family is part of that organization now. I mean, his little kids are part of the team. They're who, like Dodgers fans, consider them a part of the experience. They, their names, they get excited about seeing them. So they would miss the entire Kershaw family, not just him if he left.
Right. Well, we'll see what happens. Maybe the Dodgers will go on a streak and go back to back in 2021, and maybe he can ride off into the sunset and go spend more time with his family. So, kind of moving on a little bit, we got some spring training coming up next week. Pitchers and catchers are slated to report on the 17th, which the first set of games starting on the 22nd. So it looks like we might be having some spring training baseball starting next week, which is fantastic given this slow off season.
Yeah, the spring training couldn't come faster. I'm sure you two could attest and say the same thing. I have been waiting for spring training, hoping that it starts on time. They were talking about it possibly starting a month later. So, yeah. There's supposed to be like some sort of bubble or something going on. They're trying to keep teams on the East Coast and Florida on the East Coast and the West Coast teams on the West Coast or something similar to that. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and they came out too this week, and they also they put so many restrictions as far as the players, what they could and couldn't do last season. They've kind of gotten a little bit more relaxed now. The guys can go outside the hotel. They can go and walk around. They can go out to a restaurant if it's outside. So they can kind of have a little bit more freedom, which is probably good for them as far as their psychological and their how they go about their business, especially the way they perform. So a little bit ease on the restrictions, but it's still going to be something that it's going to be watched on. I mean, there was a lot of things that happened last season, especially with teams not going out and partying and the COVID issue. So hopefully they can still be mindful of that, but yet we've got baseball starting up next week, which is exciting finally.
They are also going to be wearing digital contact tracers. You have to wear those at all times. So that's an interesting new thing that they did not do last season. So anytime that they come in contact with or within a certain distance of somebody who tests positive, they're going to have to quarantine for, I think, 5 days or 7 days or something like that, and test and make sure they test negative in that period
Well, it'll be
of time.
interesting to see.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how everything kind of goes up, how everything starts to kind of fall into place starting next week. But there's a
So just breaking out, interrupting you guys for a second. I just found out what players coming from the Orioles to the Red Sox. Franchi Cordero.
okay, and he's going to the Red Sox. It looks like this is going
Yes.
to be a three-team trade that the Red Sox were part of too. So it looks like
I don't know the Mets, Red Sox, and the Orioles.
right.
The Mets are interested in Khalil. I think it is.
Khalil Lee from Kansas City. He's an outfield
Yeah,
prospect.
Khalil Lewis. Yeah, but it looks like I don't know any more deals out of that. But from what I understand, it's Cordero.
Okay, we'll kind of keep an eye on that.
Hassan is saying Khalil Lee would be going to the Mets, and Benintendi to the Royals, and Cordero to the Red Sox.
Okay, so we got another player in this Benintendi trade with the Mets and the Red Sox. So we'll kind of keep abreast on this, and if any more news breaks, we'll be sure to pass that along as well. So we'll kind of keep going on with tonight's episode here in the news. Heather, in your neck of the woods, Trey Mancini is back. How exciting is that to have him back in the lineup this year?
Very. He is already down in Sarasota. He went down to camp as soon as he possibly could. Not sure what he's doing down there at this point with this far before pitchers and catchers are reporting, but as soon as the event was there and staff was there, he got himself down there. He's clearly raring to go. You know that all fans are excited.
I am super excited for Trey Mancini. I was, I don't know I was sad to hear what happened to him last year with the cancer. Definitely super happy that he beat it. And I followed the posts and whatnot, saying that he was going to be out of the hospital and whatnot. And as soon as I got the news about him ending up on going to spring training and whatnot, Trey Mancini has been one of my favorite baseball players for the Orioles for some time. I remember watching him. It was the last two games of 2019, Red Sox, Orioles. I was out in left field in the stands out there. And, me being an adult, I, didn't get any baseballs, but he was throwing the balls over to the kids. It was cool. I hated him, but, that's cool. I want a baseball, damn it.
Well, he's always... Oh, go ahead.
I said I've met him a few times at different events, and he's just the nicest guy. He's so incredibly down to earth and normal seeming. You can have a conversation with him like you're talking to a buddy that you're hanging out with, and instead of it seeming like you're hanging out with or a baseball player. What's funny is that when I met him for the first time, I met him and Stevie Wilkerson together, who we'll be talking about later. He's as great in person as he seems like he would be.
Well, it'd be definitely exciting to see him back in that Orioles lineup this year. I know he's going back to first base, which is his primary position. So that's going to be great for him to get back there. And especially back in the lineup, I'm sure he's eager to go. Fans are ready to see him when fans can come back to the games. So it'll be exciting to have him, to be able to watch him again. So kind of just moving on here, we'll kind of finish out the news real quick. One of the things that baseball has come up with this past week is MLB is doctoring the baseball, so to speak. They are changing the way the configuration of the baseball is made to make it less bouncy, which means we won't be seeing a long ball very much, which is probably the most exciting part of the game.
So,
And crickets.
sorry, I'm getting updates on this Red Sox deal here. I just found out that more is included here. Right-hand pitcher Josh Winchowski goes to the Red Sox on the Benintendi deal. I don't know much on him, so. But back to are they, what is it, humidifier or whatever? They're putting them in the humidor or whatever it is, to make it heavier. I think that's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, it's supposed to take away a lot of the moisture.
Yeah, so I think it's a good idea. I think it's also funny that they're doing this because, last year they were saying, oh, the balls aren't juiced, or the year before, the balls aren't juiced. And now all of a sudden they're trying to do something that's going to make the balls not fly out out the park so easily. I personally, I love home runs and everything, but I'd like to see some small ball.
Oh, okay.
The main issue that I have with this personally is that players are striking out more, and this is just going to happen at a higher rate now that the use of sticky substances to increase spin rate is obviously increasing too. One of the main side effects of that is people striking out more. So if people are striking out and striking out more often and the ball is dead, are we just not going to see people getting any hits? We're not going to see any home runs at all. It's going to be like a lot of bunting and strikeouts and walks.
You're going to see the big guys still knocking the homers. You're going to have the Harpers. You're going to have the Martinez. You're going to have the Ozunas, the big guys. They're going to still hit those homers, but you're not going to see like Ronald Acuna knocking out a homer that's 497 feet. You're not going to see that crap. You'll probably still see the same amount of home runs. You're just not going to see them like nearly as far. I think that's the biggest thing, taken away from. I saw some home runs last year that was just really, come on. Marcelo Ozuna hit almost a 500
right, yeah,
homer. Acuna almost hit a 500-foot homer. It's like, all right, this is going to be much. I can understand like a 430-foot homer, but almost 500 is a bit much.
Yeah, but
I just want the 5'6" and 5'7" guys to still be able to hit it.
Right. Yeah, the little guys. I mean, they still have some pop too. So hopefully, this maybe we'll still see the long balls like you were talking about, Brad. But so we'll kind of keep moving on with the news so we can get into our team of the week, the Baltimore Orioles. So both the Angels and the Astros have avoided arbitration with their players. Shohei Ohtani has signed a 2-year, $8.5 million contract, which means now the Angels are faced with trying to figure out how to use Ohtani in both pitching and hitting roles. So that's going to be interesting to see how that happens. And then the Astros have avoided arbitration by signing Carlos Correa to a 1-year, $11.5 million contract, which is something they were able to kind of Correa, was able to get kind of what he was looking for. And then lastly, here with the news, our team, we talked about the Cardinals last week, and Yadier Molina, he was returning to the Cardinals, which is exciting on a 1-year, $9 million deal. So, Brett, this is something interesting. What you got?
He signed that contract specifically because Arenado just joined them.
Absolutely, 100%.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He waited to find out what they were going to do to add to the team, and he saw that Nolan Arenado was traded to the Cardinals, and he's
You still there?
yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, you kind of cut out there at the end.
Yeah, I always cut out. You know that. My internet must suck or something. I cut out like 4 times an episode. So, what are your thoughts, Heather, on Molina signing with the Cardinals?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I expected it. I think that you're exactly right that he waited to see what was happening and get his money after he jumped on board. Sorry, after
Yes.
the Arenado trade.
So one of the things that makes this deal so interesting is Molina and Adam Wainwright are back together. And one of the things I found interesting was the fact that that they call them starter catcher batteries. And these guys have worked together for 289 games, which is
That's a lot of games.
that's a lot of games, but it just goes to show that these guys are very well intertwined and connected together. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys continue to perform in 2021 and more starts and more time together. So,
Can I make a comment here?
sure, go ahead.
This is a controversial take on my part, but what you're talking about there with the pitcher catcher battery, this is why I'm anti-robot ump. I want to be able to see these pitcher catcher relationships. I want to be able to see catchers actually call games. I want to see them be able to steal strikes. I want to see the catcher be a truly defensive position beyond just throwing guys out. I think that there has to be a better solution that doesn't change the position of a catcher into an offensive position with a guy who has to crouch all the time and throw guys out at first or second.
That's a great point there. I think hopefully we can continue to see these guys work and perform, and that's the best thing about calling the game is that relationship between your pitcher and your catcher, and being able to kind of keep the opposition off balance. So it's a great duo there. But that's going to kind of do it for the news this week. We're going to kind of jump into now to our team of the week, the Baltimore Orioles, which is exciting. We're excited to talk about the Orioles this week. So Heather, let me ask you this real quick. How long have you been a fan of the Orioles?
I've been an Orioles fan my entire life. Haven't been the biggest baseball fan my entire life. I got really into baseball when I moved to Baltimore in 2014, but the Orioles.
And aren't you a season ticket holder or a partial season ticket holder?
Yep, partial ticket holder.
Okay. And now, would you say that the Orioles are going through like a couple of years of rebuilding? It seems like, what year was it that Chris Davis ended up signing that massive contract?
No, I don't remember off the top of my head, but the last year of his contract is next year. So
yeah, as an Orioles fan, are you happy about that?
that it's going to be up? I mean, yeah. I feel bad for the guy. He's a nice guy, but he's taking up a hole in our roster. So, I mean, I'm less concerned about the money than I am about the fact that he's wasting a spot on the 26-man roster right now. We will be able to put somebody else in that spot.
Who do you see
He's
playing? So Trey Mancini's going to be playing first. So Davis
Yeah.
is going to be playing. What's he going to be playing? DH.
bench sitting. That's what he's playing. I see him playing very few games this season.
Oh man, that's bad.
Yeah.
So he was traded to the Orioles in 2011 from the Texas Rangers,
Right.
and then they went and signed him to that big
Is it
contract.
2014?
Yes.
20? Yeah.
Yeah. So he struggled. He has struggled considerably.
Yeah.
What was it in 2018 where he got off to that 0 and like 50 some odd start or something like that?
Yeah.
Didn't he
That was
like
my-
get a? Didn't he end up getting his like first hit off of a Boston Red Sox pitcher?
Yeah. It was at a Red Sox game. So 2018 was my first year of having season tickets. So my first year as a season ticket holder was the worst season in Orioles history, which started off with that. Yeah.
That's why he got these season tickets.
And so he started off with that start, and it was a very interesting experience because there was this weird combination of there were people who would boo Davis every single time he came up to bat, and then there were people who would cheer for him every time he came up to bat, and there were people who brought signs to all the games to cheer him on. And there were, during this streak without a hit, there were fans from other teams who came to Orioles games just to see if that would be the game where Chris Davis finally got his hit. And they would bring signs like, go Chris Davis. And so you'd see these clusters of like Astros fans and Cardinals fans or Royals fans sitting together who had flown in from Houston or St. Louis or wherever else just to go to a game and see if that was the game where Chris Davis finally get his hit. It's been a strange few years for the team,
Wow.
for sure.
That's crazy that fans would come in just to see him get a hit. That's baseball. That's very interesting that different fan bases would come in to cheer him.
Yeah, it seems like I don't know, like there hasn't been too many players that have stayed with the O's for like a long period of time. Chris Davis is one of the only players I can think of. Machado ended up leaving. They just traded, who was it? Alex Cobb.
Trey Mancini is the second longest tenured player on the team now.
Other than Chris Davis, correct?
Other than Chris Davis. Yep.
That's
wow.
Yeah. He debuted in late 2017. Or sorry, late 26. 2017 was the year he was the Rookie of the Year finalist.
Okay. So, to kind of just keep moving on with the Orioles here. The Orioles have brought in a lot of new faces. They brought in Freddie Galvis at shortstop. They brought in pitchers Felix Hernandez and Wade LeBlanc, Connor Wade, to kind of add some pitching depth. Do you think there's any other areas that Orioles need to focus on to kind of be able to compete in the American League East?
everywhere.
This season, I don't think that they care about competing this season. I do have a theory about a free agent signing that they will, a major free agent signing that they will probably make during the next off season.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's hear that.
I think that they are going to go for Correa or Seager.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is my hot take theory.
I have been super. Before I joined this podcast, I was super anti Astros. Anybody who was a part of the Astros thing, except for Cora, and then I had a few people like basically change my perception on everything that the Astros did in 2017. Did they steal signs and cheat and whatever? Absolutely, but everybody does it. And if you see here, let me wait until my internet comes back. If you sit here and wait for think that like your team doesn't cheat, you're full of crap. But I hate Korea, and Rip knows this. I think he's a great player, and I have been an advocate that the Houston Astros need to sign him to a lifetime contract, because it's not only does he have that connection now with Houston, he's forever going to be connected to Houston. So if he goes to the Orioles, nobody's going to know him as an Oriole.
But he is connected to our general manager and our assistant general manager.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's one of the reasons why I think that he's probably the first choice, and then Seager the second. We've got. I think that we will be competitive starting in 2023. And the reason that we'd make a free agent signing for shortstop after this season is because the free agent shortstop class is really good. During next offseason, it's better than the one after, and we'd only have to pay his contract and Davis's contract overlapping for 1 year, and then Davis will be gone. And shortstop is kind of where we have a hole in our farm system. We've got a few guys who are theoretically shortstops toward the top of our top 30 prospects, but they're really big guys who everybody just pretty positive that they're going to be moved over to third base. So my assumption is that they're going to look for shortstop because they want to be competitive in 2023 and want to have a good shortstop available that year.
So let me ask you this: who would you choose, or who would you like to see on the team, Correa or Seager?
I mean, difficult. I definitely like Seager more as a person.
Okay.
Correa is an excellent shortstop. They're both very good. I think that Correa, I don't have numbers in front of me. Of course, I think Correa might be a better defensive shortstop. And with the fact that we're going to have a starting lineup that is made up of young pitchers, having a good defensive shortstop is going to be extremely important for us. We're going to have, for a long period of time, a starting rotation that's made up of homegrown guys who are new to the system and are really young.
Well, either one will fit in nicely into that lineup, and especially kind of at the top or in the middle of that lineup. So that's interesting. A very unique situation that is brewing within the Orioles organization as a team in the next couple off seasons. So it's something. The shortstop, like you mentioned, is going to be a hot commodity, especially with a lot of the players that are going to be free agents this year, like Correa, Seager, Lindor, those guys. So it's going to be a very competitive market, and I would like to see the Orioles get in on that, because that would be a phenomenal part of that lineup.
The Orioles got to do something, man. they haven't exactly had an all-star. I mean, outside of Trey Mancini, who else is like their all-star player? I mean, the last guy that they had was Machado.
Yeah, Manny. They've
Look,
got
I'm not trying to crap on your team or anything
no.
here.
I mean, they have better players than people realize that they do, but their their team is a bunch of guys who just keep coming and going and coming and going,
Right.
and in
That's the
order to
thing.
yeah, and to build a good team, you need some level of stability, which we
Camaraderie.
don't have right now. And like I said, it's not the point because the goal that Elias has at the moment is he basically had to tear the entire organization down and start over from the ground up. And he's trying to build a team that can be competitive long term instead of just competing for a few years and then uh, crashing and burning because we have no farm system. And the last few the last few front offices that we had did not do that. Like we had our farm system was ranked at the bottom for decades. We just had ours ranked at number 7, and it was the highest our farm system has been ranked in I think it was 23 years. Um, so we had this long period of time, like more than a decade, where we were just completely middling. We would win 70 so games a year because we had a bad farm system with guys who, with a bad coaching and managerial staff who couldn't develop talent. Um, and then we were signing players, but didn't have anybody that we could bring up. And when those guys left, the prospects that we had who came up weren't good. And then Duquette and Buck came in and they would sign guys. But we had a few guys with just natural talent who our uh, coaching staff couldn't screw up, like Machado. But um, Machado was never going to sign with us. No matter what any Orioles fan thinks, that was not going to happen. And we didn't have anybody to replace him with. We had all of these guys who were up for free agency at the same time, and we didn't have anybody to replace them with. Our farm system was full of shit.
Right.
um, so we were just left with this dumpster fire, and he had to figure it out. So it's just not worth making any major signings of good players until the farm system was at a level where we had young good players coming in and fill in the blanks with those guys where we knew what we actually would need. But we picked
Not,
up some fun guys from random places, like Cesar Valdez from who was in the Mexican League, just pitched in the uh, Caribbean series and was there for the Dominican team that won and was their starting pitcher in that series.
so I got a question because I see, obviously I see all the Oriole games that the Red Sox play at Camden Yards, and is it is it really as empty as it looks?
It varies. Um,
And
sometimes it,
again, I'm not trying to crap on it.
yeah.
I know I hear from a lot of people. I'm in the East Coast. I'm probably, I don't know, 6 hours away from Baltimore.
Hmm.
All right, and I go to all these other stadiums and ballparks and whatnot, and I've been told by almost every person who's been to Camden Yards that it's a great park to go to. and they always tell me that, oh, no matter what, you can get tickets. You can wait until the minute, up until the minute of the game, and you can still get tickets. Now, is it just because, like, is the fan base not really there, or?
I mean, when teams get really terrible, people stop going to games. So,
True.
but
Yeah.
what before 2018, there were 2 to 3 times as many people coming to games. But when you have a 47 win season,
People don't want to see that.
people don't want to go. But when you would even see over 2019, there'd be a like little mini winning streaks, and you'd see people like the number of people coming start going up. But it really varied. I went to I think 37 games in 2019, and some of the games had like 7,500 people, and then there were a few games that had 30,000. So there was a pretty wide range of people who went to the games, and it varied pretty significantly. But
Right.
a Tuesday night game, yeah, a Tuesday night game was going to have not very many people. Uh, but the more games that we win, the more people who are going to come. But in 2016, when I was going, and in 2015, there were 30,000 plus fans at any game, and a lot of games were selling. And even in
I,
2018 and 2019, a few games did sell out.
I could definitely see your point there with it being like, if you have 47 wins, not too many people are going to want to go. Me, on the other hand, I'll go to every single game.
Oh yeah.
If I
What's interesting? Yeah. Sorry. What's interesting
so
is that the television ratings went up as the number of people going to games went down. So apparently people didn't stop watching games, they just stopped going to the ballpark.
Right.
They just stayed home and watched them on TV.
it's cheaper to watch it on TV than
Yeah.
it is to. It's got to change now though, because what's the TV company, MSAN or something like that?
Masson, yeah.
Yeah, there was a thing where they're like going to be cutting out like pre and post games for both the Orioles and the Nationals. So, all right, so we're gonna move on. We've got our players of the week, and Rip actually has a video of a play of your player that you'd like to talk about. And I was actually at this game, and this was like one of the most unbelievable catches I think I could have ever seen. I never like, I see like the bonds and everything, and yeah, but like the outstanding great catches. Stevie Wilkerson, what position does he play? Is he like utility guy?
He is a super utility player. He plays everything but catcher.
So he played right field, and I remember, Jackie Bradley Jr. was up. He hit the ball. You could tell by the sound of the crack of the bat that ball was going to be gone. Stevie was out right field. He caught the ball. Incredible catch. Rip, go ahead and play the clip.
That ball is tagged right field, back warning track at the wall, up and oh! He caught it! He caught it! Unbelievable catch! Stevie Wilkerson, one of the greatest catches you will ever see. He went up in the corner where the bullpen wall comes and meets the stands. Caught it. Ribs landed on the corner into the first row. And that is the final out of the inning. Willie Mays meet Stevie Wilkerson.
What a catch, Stevie Wilkerson. Oh, that was awesome.
I kid you not. I was right there on the right base, on the right field side. It was the very last game of 2019. And yeah, what an incredible catch.
I can only imagine what it would have been like since I mean, I wasn't there, but being able to see that catch there at Fenway, but it was such a,
Everybody was going crazy. Red Sox fans, Orioles fans, everybody was going crazy. It was just one of those catches like you're like, oh my God, he really got that. So, Heather, what, obviously that catch kind of like got my attention and made me gravitate towards Stevie as well. Like I remember going home and trying to watching that replay. There was another thing. You said that you probably enjoyed more so than that play. And it was when Stevie had the save. He became the first position player to have a save, which is crazy. So what reasons, like, what makes you like Stevie Wilkerson?
So one thing that is important to know about Stevie Wilkerson is that he's a thoroughly mediocre player. It's like mediocre to bad. He's not a good baseball player, but everything that he does is extraordinary. So when he does something good or does something bad, it's just like, whoa, Stevie, like that was a game changer. So he makes catches and he's very good at doing the bad and the good at the same time. So I think that he screwed up earlier in that game too, and fumbled a catch, missed a catch, and then did that one, and then the that game where he made the save, it was this 16-inning game against the Angels, which started at 10 o'clock East Coast time and ended at 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I stayed up and watched the entire thing. There were multiple score changes, and I believe that 2 or 3 of the score changes were actually because of Stevie. Like I think that he got a hit, which helped, which either tied or got us into the lead, but he also fucked up touches, which retied the game or took away the lead or whatever. So even before getting the save, he was instrumental in the game becoming what it was. Like the team not winning it by the 9th inning or not having lost by the 9th inning or not winning earlier than that. So even like the game evolving into what it was, he'd already played this huge role in it. And so the team is bad. It's very bad, which means that they get into a lot of situations where they're losing games by a lot of runs, which means you need some position players pitching.
Right.
And that season, Stevie was the guy who kept getting called upon. And at that point, he'd already earned this fan favorite status for being a guy who'd kept being called on because he'd go out there and he'd stand on the mound and he'd throw this just arcing, what would be an eephus pitch if a real pitcher was throwing it, just this super slow arcing sinker ball over the plate that was a strike, and the batters would just stare at it like,
what just happened?
Yeah, when somebody's throwing you a 68 mile per hour, I guess it would be actually considered a curveball. You're like, oh boy, that type of pitch. You know who it reminds me of? It reminds me of the big bully from, what was it, Rookie of the Year?
Oh yeah,
when he throws the ball underhand and he's like,
but guys couldn't get hits off of him. Nobody could, he was getting up here and he was throwing these ridiculous pitches and nobody could hit him. guys were getting pop outs. They were striking out. And so everybody was like, yes, Stevie, get him to pitch all the time. He's amazing. We love him. Not all that long before this, there was a game after it. Time, it has no meaning. There was a game that we lost 23-2.
Was that the Astros game?
That was the Astros game. That was a very weird game. I have a friend who has season ticket in the 8th row behind home plate, and her husband does not like watching bad games. So mid 4th inning, she texts me and is like, "Come take my tickets and sit here." My husband and I go and sit in her seats, and literally maybe 10 seconds after I sit down, a guy sits down right next to me, and it's Mike Elias. And so I end up sitting next to the general manager of the Orioles for the rest of the game, where he's watching the team that he's currently managing getting slaughtered by his previous team.
Wow.
It's a very bizarre experience. But they ended up calling in Stevie to pitch that game, and the entire crowd is chanting, "Stevie, Stevie, Stevie." And Elias is sitting there like, but he's laughing behind, like laughing in his hand, behind his hand. But yeah, he just to become a fan favorite already by that point, because he was known as the guy who pitched and people couldn't hit him, and he gained the nickname Dr. Poo Poo already. Because I think it was Hyde had asked him about what he did out there, and he's like, "I just go out and throw poo poo." That's the nickname. Yeah, and they ran out of pitchers because it was 16 inning game, and Hyde was just like, "Well, we've got one pitcher left.
Right.
Stevie, come on out." So he went out and he pitched, and he struck out Albert Pujols, and
Wow.
they won the game. So it was pretty incredible, because the number of people on the East Coast who stayed up until 4:30 in the morning watching that game was amazing. Twitter was alive with it. Lots of people delirious with exhaustion and super excited to be seeing what was happening. But yeah, like I said, when he does something, he goes all out. He ended up in Cooperstown because of that game.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, because he was the first position player with a save.
Yep. So the ball he threw and his glove taken to Cooperstown.
Wow. That's got to be a pretty surreal experience, especially he's only been in the league 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's pretty phenomenal to already have, some of your glove and your possessions, balls, and whatnot already in Cooperstown. So that's pretty phenomenal. I'm sure was pretty elated to have that experience, just be able to pitch and then to have the ball and glove go to Cooperstown. So, but
he's just this guy full of personality and full of joy, and so of anybody to have that happen to is so nice to see it happen, and it made it even.
That's awesome. So our second player, which is our Twitter fan poll, is probably one of the highest votes we've ever gotten on our Twitter page when we've been doing this where the listeners pick the player. And this week was Cal Ripken Jr. And you can't speak about the Orioles unless Cal Ripken is mentioned in the same sentence. The Iron Man, who surpassed Lou Gehrig's consecutive streak of 2,130 games. Ripken surpassed that on September 6, 1955, for his 2,131st consecutive game.
Again?
Yeah, 1995.
What'd I
1955
say?
would have been a little.
1955.
1955.
I did it again. I did that on a couple episodes where I kept getting the dates wrong. My apologies. 1995.
It's literally right here in the notes.
It's right here in front of me, and I said, "Wow, okay." My apologies. 19. I apologize to all Orioles fans. 1995 is when he surpassed Lou Gehrig, the Iron Man, Cal Ripken Jr., a 19-time All-Star, 2-time MVP, 8-time Silver Slugger, also won a Rookie of the Year in 1991, and he was elected to the Hall of Fame in 2007 with a 98.5% of the votes.
I can't believe he was only a 2-time Gold Glove winner.
Right?
Yeah.
He was such phenomenal, especially at shortstop and at third base.
I one of my favorite memories, it actually includes Alex Rodriguez. So Alex Rodriguez, I believe he had just been traded to the Yankees. Could have been the Rangers. I'm not 100%. I think it was the Yankees. No,
No,
it
he
was
was
the
still with
Rangers.
the Rangers.
It was still with the Rangers. So it was the All-Star game that year, and Cal was playing third, and Torrey was like, Torrey and A-Rod had talked already, and A-Rod was like, "Nah, I'm not playing shortstop with Cal Ripken in the game. He's going to play shortstop." And I don't care what anybody says. You can hate A-Rod all you want. I don't care if this was a Joe Torre move or whatnot. It makes me think that A-Rod was being a classy guy, and he let Cal take over at shortstop for an inning or two. I think it was.
Well, he started the game. It was during warmups, and it was kind of one of those spur of the moment. Yeah, it was spur of the moment because A-Rod was going to play
He was the shortstop.
And they switched right before the game, and Cal was like, no, and they kind of worked it out, and yeah, he ended up playing the game at shortstop. So that was pretty exciting to see, something a young athlete like A-Rod for them to go out and do further the Iron Man. But Heather, did you happen to ever see Cal Ripken play?
I did. I can't say that I have strong memory of it because it actually was 1995, I think. It was 95 or 96. But I was pretty young, 11 or 12 at the time. So mostly I remember getting a big foam finger waving it around with friends of mine. That was my first game. So.
Oh wow. But yeah, Cal Ripken was our Twitter poll player of the week. So
I do have, if you guys didn't know this, a Cal Ripken, I guess, trivia. There's a theme park in Maryland that is now a Six Flags, which used to be called Adventure World. And when it was Adventure World, it had a Cal Ripken Jr. themed water park.
wow.
So, yeah, could go to the water park, and everything in the water park was Cal Ripken Jr. So, growing up, even when I didn't watch a ton of baseball, Cal Ripken Jr. was still one of my favorite people because he was one of the prides of Maryland. And his face was all over everything, and his name was all over everything, and there were baseball and Orioles themed names for the different slides, and it now has some entertainment themes.
So you say that he was your favorite person. I remember this past offseason. Was it this past offseason? Not offseason. This past season, they were talking. It was, they were talking about Cal Ripken Jr. There was a pitcher making his debut, and all I saw on my Twitter feed was, "Can we not talk about this crap while this guy's making his debut?"
It's not personal against Cal. It was just very frustrating to me. So that was the 25th anniversary of 2131. So they had a conversation with Cal, and Cal likes to talk. So if you start talking to him, he will talk and talk and talk,
Right.
which a lot of fans enjoy, and I respect that. He's the Orioles hero, and he's not just the Orioles hero. He's like one of Maryland's heroes.
Right.
But there was a pitcher, a rookie pitcher, who was making his debut that day. It's his first major league start, and he's the first um, Israeli citizen pitcher ever to make their major league debut. So it was a historic thing. There were people who in Israel who were stayed up super late so that they could watch the game, and the commentators on Masson weren't calling the game at all. So I was trying to pay attention to what was going on, and frequently, like, I had no idea. It was hard to see who was at bat, what the count was, and I felt like he wasn't getting the attention that he deserved. And
Well, if he wasn't getting the attention that he deserved, you were rooting for it. You were rooting for
I
that
was.
attention.
It was not a popular take on my part.
I thought it was absolutely great. I thought it was absolutely great. But you've got a crap load of Orioles fans on your feed. So we usually end our show asking every one of our guests the same question, and we're going to ask you, what is your favorite all-time baseball movie?
Favorite all-time baseball. There are so many different things that you can see baseball movies. Oh, you know what? Can I include documentaries in this, or does it have to be a fiction?
I mean, I guess we can do documentaries.
We hadn't thought about that, but yeah.
No, a documentary, the Doc Ellis documentary.
No documentary.
This is a documentary about Doc Ellis, who was the pitcher who threw a no-hitter on acid, who was a part of the Pirates.
That's who it was. I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day. I forgot his name.
Right,
yes, the guy was tripping his balls off on acid, and he pitched a no-hitter. Dude,
it's an incredible documentary because it doesn't just go into him. He was a really interesting character who had a lot of issues, but this Pirates team that he was on,
they were all on drugs.
They were all on drugs, but it was also the blackest team ever at that point.
That's true.
And they were the first team ever to field an all-brown team, which was entirely coincidental. It wasn't something that they did on purpose, but they made a lot of historic moves when it came to race in baseball, and there were a lot of players on that team who were very important when it comes to the history of baseball. Like Roberto Alomar was on that team too, right? No, that's it. He was born in '68. No, who am I thinking? My name. I am blanking on names. The one who died in a plane crash, who was known for
Roy Halladay?
No, who was a player back in the
Oh,
70s, who was
okay.
very well known for
The Yankees.
his work in the Dominican Republic and Latin
Oh,
America.
Roberto Clemente.
Clemente. I was
Okay.
saying, yeah, I got the Roberto part right. Yeah, so Clemente was on that team. Yeah, it was just full of all of these really important players. And the documentary, it's hilarious. It's heartbreaking. It's, yeah, highly recommend it.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen it. MLB Network has played it before. Real good. It's real good. And that's when I found out. And I was watching it on MLB Network. And that's when I realized, I was like, this guy really threw no on acid. So, yeah. Yeah. That's a good documentary.
Definitely have to check that one out. But that's about all we got for tonight's episode. Heather, we thank you so much for coming on, talking Orioles baseball with us, sharing your stories of everything that's going on in Baltimore. Hopefully we can, see, like you mentioned, the team kind of kick it around after in the next couple of seasons to get them back through this rebuild so they can get back to winning a pennants and World Series and all that fun stuff in between. So thank you so much for coming on the show tonight to talk about the Orioles.
Thank you guys for having me.
And that's going to do it for this episode. Brad, thank you so much for everything that you do. I thoroughly appreciate it, as always. But that's going to do it for this episode. Be sure to head on over to Apple, Google, or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review the show. And like we mentioned in the open, we are part now of the Podcast City Network. Head on over to podcastcity.net. Check out all the great shows that are on the network. So that's going to do it for this episode, guys. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Rip Griffin Show. Make sure to subscribe to the show on all the major podcast platforms. Follow Rip on Twitter @RipGriffin2.